Welcome to another episode of UCRD Reviews. So today we have another mobile suit from Mobile Suit Variations to take a look at. A really interesting design. This is the MSN-01 Psycommu System Zaku version anime. This Zaku is a mobile suit developed for new type use toward the end of the 1 Year War. It's a really interesting looking Zaku variation, one of the final ones of the 1 Year War, and one that hasn't really seen much in terms of figures or even model kits. It's never had a figure, and I believe it's only had 1 or 2 model kits made of it. We did briefly see it in the Gundam Thunderbolt OVA, and outside of that, I think Gundam Build Fighters had something in there for it, but pretty obscure release. It is a Bandai, unfortunately, but a really neat looking mobile suit that was eventually developed into the Zeong, which we all should know, the Char used in Mobile Suit Gundam. So let's go ahead and take a look at this one. The Psycommu System Zaku looks really neat. It's a prototype unit, and it has this white coloring to reflect that. It is a figure that has a lot of markings, which is something I like to see out of the MSV line here. And you can see even with the way the legs are, it kind of retains its prototype status in that it's not even symmetrical. So starting up here at the head, look down about that far, and can look up quite a bit. It can do a full 360 turn around, and you can take the top of the head off and move the mono eye, much like many other Zakus. Now, one interesting thing you can do here is actually turn the mono eye all the way around to give the Psycommu Zaku the appearance that it is powered down, because the mono eye doesn't have a stop in it like most other Zakus that allow the eye to only go so far. There's also a notch in here that helps you figure out where the eye is centered, so it kind of falls into place. It does have antennas back here, which are replaceable in case you break them over here. The chest has a little bit of chest flex there. You have 2 effect part compatible thrusters that move a little bit. It can look downward about that far and come up actually a decent bit. I mean, that's quite a bit there, and full 360 rotation in the torso there, which is quite nice. Arms will come up about that far before they start hitting the head there, and they can obviously do a full rotation. The shoulder armor seems to be fixed in place on the arms. It does not seem to move very independently. It just kind of moves with the arm there. So they'll come out about that far, which is quite a bit. You do have a rotating joint here, and you have double hinged elbows. We're getting to that part in just a second, where the arms will separate. The elbows will allow it to go to more of a right angle. That's because the forearms are so large. And yes, the arms do separate, which we'll go into why in a little bit. You have thrusters sculpted in down here. The hands look like they're double ball jointed, so they move around a little bit. The fingers are all ball jointed, so they can turn, and they fold in about that far and come out to kind of a resting position there. These fingers are not effect part compatible, and then you have a little panel in here that allows the arms to be compatible with stand pieces, which again we'll go over shortly. Going around to the back side here, we have 3 effect part compatible ball jointed thrusters. You have 2 more down here that have a decent range of movement. You have your stand connection right there, and then we get into the interesting part, which is the legs. right now they're actually connected. None of the skirt armor is movable. You do have some effect part compatible thrusters in the middle there. The legs are ball jointed, and you have knee articulation there, but the easier way to show this off is to actually separate them. So you have this little piece right here that goes in between the two legs, which you can leave it posed like that. That's often how it's shown, and this piece can move around much like the rest of the legs, or the rest of the stand bits. But separating it allows for a bit more movement. So the legs can actually be pulled down and extended slightly, and they'll come out about that far, which isn't very much, and that's because of the fixed skirt armor here. They'll come forward about that far, and you have a little bit of knee articulation, but not a lot because this is so bulky. One of the design elements here is much like the Zeong. Instead of feet, they just used a lot of thrusters. Each one is effect part compatible and ball jointed, and all these pieces here are movable as well, so that you can have them flat for a standing pose or have them angled like it's flying, which is pretty neat. And you even have that mimicking like a hydraulic kind of posing there. So overall, it's actually quite posable considering its bulkiness, and there's a lot you can do with it. It looks really nice. I like all the markings. This is the number 2 unit, which is accurate to the model kit that it's based off of, and the MSV line art. So let's take a look at what it comes with, because it has some interesting accessories. I also forgot to add, before we move on to accessories, we talked about how the legs are extendable. I forgot to mention the whole movement of the knees is actually kind of a hidden feature. These are extendable as well. So when this piece is connected in between the two legs, they're up in this shorter configuration, and then when this is separated, both parts come down and it has a longer configuration, so you can see the height difference there. So the Psycommu system Zaku doesn't come with a lot in terms of accessories. It looks like a lot here because it's 2 different trays, but we'll kind of get into it. A lot of this is just effect parts, which is correct. The first thing I want to show is the hands. You only get 1 extra set of hands, and all the fingers here are still ball jointed, including the thumbs, but these are effect part compatible. These are mainly used for shooting poses. So you get a set of those which just peg right in, just like normal, and you get the arm connection cables. So much like the Zeong, the Psycommu system Zaku's arm weaponry is connected via cable and can shoot out and attack enemies from different directions using new type powers, which is really interesting. And so these mimic the cables that you would use. So you would actually disconnect the arm at the elbow there. You would plug in this side, and then this side would plug into the arm itself. And these wires, much like the Zeong and many other figures, are bendable, and you can make them into different poses and shapes. So the next thing I want to talk about here is actually in this tray, and that is the stand. So you probably have seen this many times. This is the same type of stand that I use in my reviews. This is just a Tamashii Act 5 stand, which is kind of nice that this figure comes with it. So it's hinged here and here. This is where the figure would connect to, and all of these circular pieces that you see around here are alternate points where you can plug the stand in. There's a little piece there that pops out, and you can kind of plug the stand wherever you want. If you have multiples of these stands like me, you can use different pieces to plug in as well to help with posing. But we get this, which is quite nice. And moving back to this tray, you actually get a stand adapter for the Zaku here. So we talked about the stand connector here, but you have this piece which allows an alternate point of contact for the stand. So let's take a look at that. So what you'll want to do here is separate the legs a little bit, and this piece will actually peg into the normal stand hardpoint. And you'll notice on the legs there's a hardpoint down here where my finger is, and that's what this pegs into. But there's one above it up there. This stand piece is actually nice because not only is it just an alternate stand piece, but it actually pegs in between here and is a more secure method of utilizing the stand, and you can plug in at the front, which is pretty cool. So one thing I did notice, which I didn't cover a little bit ago, there are some quality control issues with this, and it may be because it's white and it's easier to see, but you can tell there's some gaps there. You can see a dab of glue that's left behind, as well as where my thumb is over here. There's some glue, lots of gaps in these pieces here. So I didn't notice much in terms of quality issues, but I did notice that. So moving on, I think that's about it for the accessories, actually, for the normal stuff. You do have some thruster effect parts. So you have these smaller ones here, and you have some larger ones. It looks like you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You have 8 up here, and you have 5 of these, which are a little bit shorter, and then you have 10 of these finger beams, all the same size and look quite nice, and we'll show what those look like on the figure soon. But that is it for effect parts. Quite a bit, a lot of repeated stuff, which is perfectly fine because this mobile suit has quite a few thrusters and quite a few beam hands. So let's do a comparison real quick while we have the figure out. So one thing I forgot to cover a second ago, you actually get 3 different sized beam effects. The short one and the large one, you get 4 of each, and the middle one, you get 2. So one thing you'll notice being next to the Zeong here is that this Psycommu System Zaku is quite small. This is shorter than your average figure, and even with the legs extended, let's see if I can get them to extend, there we go. Even with them extended, it is still being dwarfed by the Zeong, which has no legs at all. This one has no feet, this one has no legs. So the Zeong is more of an average sized mobile suit, and this one is a bit on the short side. But you can see, one of the problems with the Psycommu System Zaku was the limitations of being based on a Zaku. So when developing this further, they decided, why don't we just build a new mobile suit from the ground up? And that's where the Zeong came in. And again, when they figured, feet weren't really necessary, let's replace them with thrusters, they went one step further and just completely got rid of the legs with this model. So very interesting to see them side by side. Being a P Bandai release, the Psycommu System Zaku fetched quite a price. I paid $91.19 for this figure before shipping, which is a lot for such a short figure. However, once you start looking into the detail that went into this figure, it's a completely new sculpt, it's a very obscure figure, and it has lots of effect parts and all the accessories that it needs. The price starts to make a little bit more sense. Now I can go on about how all the figures' prices are getting higher and higher and quality is not getting any better, but that's a different discussion. You'll see that I used a different style of stand here. The one that it comes with is nice, but once you start putting all these effect parts in the legs, it's too tall and it won't fit quite right on the stand. It is a modular design. I like where you can keep the legs together and shorter, or have them separated and extended. And of course the Psycommu cables make a big difference in posing. You can see all the thrusters back there, some of which got kind of fumbled up when I was posing it earlier, but a lot of detail in this figure, which is what I like to see out of the MSV designs. You know, some of them were just painted very basically, and then ones like this had all the markings and details that I like to see. So, you know, the question is it worth nearly $100 before shipping? I would say so. This is a really cool Zaku variant. There's a lot of posing that you can do with it, and it's very unique looking. I hope they make the Bishop down the line, which is the precursor to this mobile suit, and I hope they finish off the MSV line. Thank you for watching. Thank you for being patient with me and supporting the channel. And the next thing up is going to be the Desert Spec Ground Gundam from 8th MS Team. So leave a comment below if you picked this Zaku up and what you thought of it. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.